In the city of Zaria, there was a man called Malam Jibril, a man once known for the quality of his meat, but who would come to be remembered for the darkness that consumed his soul and the horrors that unfolded in the shadows of his shop. Malam Jibril was a respected butcher in Zaria, known for the tender cuts of meat he sold to the people of the city. His shop was always busy, filled with customers who trusted him to provide the best for their families. But behind the facade of a simple butcher lay a man whose greed and ambition knew no bounds, a man who would stop at nothing to satisfy his hunger for wealth. It began with a whisper, a suggestion from a shadowy figure who knew of Jibril's ambitions. The man offered him money, more money than Jibril had ever seen in his life. But there was a price to pay, a cost that would forever stain his soul. For the man did not want the usual cuts of beef or goat. He wanted something darker, something forbidden. In the dead of night, when the city was asleep, Jibril carried out his gruesome work. The first time was the hardest. His hands trembled, his heart pounded, but the lure of wealth was too strong. He convinced himself that it was just business, that the money would help his family, that he was doing what needed to be done. But deep down, he knew there was no turning back. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Jibril's shop continued to thrive. The customers never suspected a thing, never questioned the strange new flavors in the meat they bought. Jibril had learned to hide the truth behind a smile, to bury his guilt beneath the piles of money that grew in the back room of his shop. At home, Jibril's family basked in the comfort of their new prosperity. They praised him for his hard work, for the way he had provided for them. But every time Jibril looked into their eyes, he felt a pang of guilt, a tightening in his chest that reminded him of the price he had paid for their happiness. The money had brought them comfort, but it had also brought him nightmares. One day, a local cleric visited Jibril's shop. He was a man of God, respected and revered in the community. As he inspected the meat, his sharp eyes noticed something amiss, a scent, a texture that wasn't quite right. He questioned Jibril, his voice gentle but firm. Jibril deflected, assured him that it was nothing, just a new recipe he was trying. But his hands shook as he wrapped the meat, and the cleric left with a lingering sense of unease. The cleric returned to his home with a heavy heart. He prayed for guidance, sensing that something dark was at work in the city. He had seen evil before, had felt its presence, and now that same feeling gnawed at him once more. He prayed for the strength to uncover the truth, to protect his people from the darkness that threatened them. Over the next few weeks, the cleric quietly investigated, speaking to people in the market, listening to whispers, piecing together the mystery. The more he learned, the more his suspicions pointed to Jibril, but without proof, he could do nothing. He knew that to accuse a man like Jibril would require undeniable evidence, evidence that could not be ignored. On a rainy night, when the sky wept for the sins of men, the cleric returned to Jibril's shop. The door was ajar, as if inviting him in. With a heart heavy with dread, he entered, his footsteps echoing in the silence. And there, in the back room, he found the truth, a truth so horrific that it drove him to his knees. Human remains, wrapped and prepared for sale, lay before him, a testament to the darkness that had consumed Jibril's soul. Jibril returned to his shop, drenched from the rain, only to find the cleric standing in the doorway, his face a reflection of the horror that lay behind him. In that moment, Jibril knew it was over. The darkness he had embraced had finally caught up with him, and there was no escape. The cleric did not stay silent. He called the villagers, revealing the horror that had been hidden in plain sight. The people of Zaria gathered outside the shop, their faces a mix of shock, anger, and disbelief. They had trusted Jibril, had welcomed him into their homes, and now they realized that trust had been betrayed in the most unimaginable way. Jibril was taken away by the authorities, his head bowed in shame. The wealth he had accumulated, the power he had sought, all of it meant nothing now. He had traded his soul for riches, and in the end, he was left with nothing but regret and sorrow. The cleric, with a heavy heart, led the villagers in prayer. They prayed for forgiveness, for protection from the evil that had entered their community, for the strength to heal from the wounds that had been inflicted. And as they prayed, they knew that Zaria would never be the same, but they also knew that they would not let the darkness define them. As the sun rose over Zaria, a new day began. The market bustled with life once more, but the shadows of the past lingered in the minds of the people. They had learned a harsh lesson, one that would not be forgotten. The butcher of Zaria was gone, but the memory of his deeds remained, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the hearts of men.